This is Mohammed Qanatari, the recently appointed Syrian chargé d'affaires to the United States. It's not quite the same role as ambassador, but for all intents and purposes, he is serving as the Syrian ambassador to America.
And I'm here to play a role. As first Syrian resident diplomat at the United States in 2014, I think, I'm here to help build this new historic relationship.
I first met Mohammed Qanatari in July of 2016, when I was kidnapped by his group, Jabhat al-Nusra, in Syria. But before I get into him, some context. Russia and the Assad regime were bombing the Aleppo countryside relentlessly, and I went, as I'd gone many times before, to report on the situation. What I didn't know before I went was that Jabhat al-Nusra, the Syrian al-Qaeda affiliate, had taken control of more of the Aleppo countryside than ever before. Even areas technically under the control of the so-called Free Syrian Army were de facto Nusra territories. The very few Western journalists still working in this part of Syria were vigilant about Nusra, because Nusra had kidnapped many foreigners before. Another stroke of bad luck was that just a few hours after I'd crossed the border from Turkey, where I lived, there was a coup attempt. So Turkey was immediately under martial law, and the border was effectively sealed. I was stuck in Syria. I was embedded with a faction of the Free Syrian Army, and they assured me that everything was fine. They told me Nusra had no problem with me being in Aleppo. And then I met Mohammed Qanatari, a Nusra member and a university student in Turkish-occupied northern Cyprus. He too told me that everything was fine, and that he'd stay with me so there'd be no problems with Nusra. He escorted me to the places I wanted to film, like military sites, hospitals, and a few days into my trip, I asked if I could interview him. Honestly, in spite of the precarious situation, I was thrilled to have the opportunity to finally cover Nusra up close. Mohammed agreed to the interview, but he wanted to cover his face. But you can tell from the eyes, the voice, and the speech patterns that this is the same person.
There are several differences between ISIS and Nusra, and that's of course one of them.
Today, there are several ministers and committees inside Syria working on these ideas.
Several.
Let's get into the interview. Again, this is Syria's first diplomat to America in more than a decade. Note that I've cut a lot of the stutters and pauses for length and clarity.
And Nusra is, as we are a Muslim group, Muslim people trying to protect people from the Assad regime, from the Shia militias, to establish an Islamic country in Syria, Islamic state in Syria.
What do you mean by an Islamic state?
Islamic state is Islamic controlled by Sharia law.
Who doesn't do dumb stuff in their 20s? Some people party too much, some people stay in bad relationships, and some people fight to establish an Islamic state. What do you think about the groups that get American support?
In general, I think they are stupid. Some of them are not Muslims now, fighting with America. Some of them are stupid, think they are taking supporting from America without any orders, and America controlling them, and maybe not directly.
In 2014, the US began arming rebel factions it deemed moderate. Right after US arms deliveries, Nusra would come in, attack the groups, and steal their weapons and vehicles. Mohammed was saying that the groups that accepted US support were stupid, because eventually, the US would control them.
Maybe now they're giving them money without any orders, and after 2 or 3 months or years or anything, they ask them to do that or that thing, or we'll cut your supporting. They will be forcing to fight us, to fight Muslims, to establishing a secular state, and that's forbidden in Islam.
What do you think America wants to do in Syria?
As always, America wants to control us, want us under its control, like Iraq, like Burma, like everywhere else, like killing Sunnis. They don't want a Sunni to be a president ruling by Islamic law.
A common conspiracy theory among opposition factions was that America secretly supported the Assad regime. It was ridiculous. Clearly, America had no problem with this Sunni being president. Why did you join?
In Nusra? To protecting my people.
But why Nusra? Why not the Free Syrian Army?
Because the organized group, and because of their goal. Their big goal, establishing Islamic state, is very clear. Look at that make them special.
Is the suicide bombing what makes Nusra more...
Please, it's sacrificing.
Sacrificing.
The one who bombing himself, you can't buy with money. because they are afraid of that, of course. And they think that we are terrorists, we are mindless, and something like that.
And some human rights organizations say that these car bombs can hurt civilians. Does that ever happen?
No, of course not.
Let me just interrupt to say that that's patently false. And their their sacrifice bombings killed lots of civilians. A couple days after this interview, armed Nusra militants came to drag me out of the house I was staying in and take me to an isolated place deep in the Aleppo countryside. I saw Mohammed several times in the first days of my captivity. His final words to me were to tell me that the Nusra militants holding me wanted me to move from the sitting room into a jail cell in the basement. My response was not positive, and shortly after, Nusra moved me to a real prison. And then, all these years later, I saw that Qanatari was appointed Syria's diplomat to America. In one of Ahmed al-Shara's first interviews after taking control of Syria, he blamed his terrorist past on his youth. So we could do the same thing here. People change, right? But as I've said before, when Jolani announced that Nusra was splitting from al-Qaeda, I was their foreign captive. They were very explicit about the fact that the split was so that the West would stop targeting them because they were al-Qaeda. The international response was, very logically, it's the same group, they're still terrorists, we're still going to target them.
They are a foreign terrorist organization. We certainly see no indication that would give us reason to change the designation of this group. Again, you judge an organization like this on their goals, their ideology, their objectives.
And then there were more rebrands, culminating in image rehabilitation with the help of Western media and think tanks.
Starting in 2023, a British non-government organization which specializes in conflict resolution invited me to help them bring this guy out of the terrorist world and into regular politics.
And today, journalists who are outspoken against Nusra, its later iterations, and their widespread human rights abuses and extremism have done a complete 180 and turned into sycophants. I was torn about posting this video, because it means I probably can't go back to Syria. At least not as long as this government exists. That was already pretty much the case. We applied for journalist permission and we were rejected, unsurprisingly. Though a Ministry of Information staffer told a contact of mine, maybe Allah will guide her to change the tone of her content, and Syria won't be closed to her forever. But I think the truth is the most important thing. And on that note, the Syrian government just announced a new set of laws restricting the media. They're deliberately vague, including provisions against fake news and offensive content, without any details about what would constitute these. This is really concerning. Turkey has similar laws, and they've been used to snuff out press freedom for years. But some good news. The Syrian government's new application for press permission features a category for influencers. So, although critical journalists may be forbidden to enter, you can count on lots and lots of reels from hotels in Raqqa and ice cream shops in Damascus. Anyway, I'll leave you with this. What do you think is going to happen in Syria?
It's very, very clear, very simple. We'll kill al-Assad and his regime, the Shia militias too, and we will establish Islamic State. Maybe not in 1 year or 2 years, maybe we have 10 years. We have nothing to do.